In addition to the Apostles' Creed and the Ten Commandments, the Church has traditionally used the Lord's Prayer as a teaching tool. For example, the last 11 questions of the Westminster Larger Catechism focus on the Lord's Prayer and each of its petitions. I thought I would turn now to this most familiar prayer for the next several days before I take some time off later this month. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Wednesday, July 12th, 2023. A couple of quick things to know about the Lord's Prayer in general before we jump into specifics. First, it is found in two places in the Bible. We first encounter it in the Gospel of Matthew, in the Sermon on the Mount. There, Jesus is speaking to a large crowd, and his teaching on prayer includes most of what we know as the Lord's Prayer. We also encounter the prayer in the Gospel of Luke, only this time Jesus is speaking only to his disciples, and they simply ask him how to pray. This version is shorter than the version in Matthew, but it is recognizably the same prayer. It is Matthew's version of the prayer that we continue to use in large part today. The second thing to note is that there is a section of the prayer we continue to pray that appears in neither Matthew nor Luke. It is the final, "For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever." This was a later addition meant as a kind of ascription of praise, and though Jesus himself apparently did not include it, it seems like an appropriate conclusion. The prayer begins with our address to God, "Our Father who art in heaven." This should be familiar ground. It is very similar to the beginning of the Apostles' Creed, where we say, "I believe in God the Father Almighty." But there is a difference, a big one. It is the word our Father. This moves from a statement of what we believe to a personal address to the God to whom we belong. What is hinted at in the Apostles' Creed is made plain here. Whereas in the Creed we identify God as one with whom we have a certain kind of relationship, here we actually address God, who is like a divine parent to us. To put it differently, in the Apostles' Creed we use third-person language. In the Lord's Prayer we use second-person language. Not him, but you. This language invites us into direct relationship with God as a child to a parent. But unlike a human parent who is fallible, this one will never fail us. We can have complete and perfect confidence in this relationship. Like a small child who learns to trust a loving parent to care for and protect her, a parent to whom she can run when scared, receive comfort from when hurt, and rely on to meet her basic needs, so we can trust God and turn to God to care for us in whatever condition we find ourselves. The prayer continues with the statement, "Who art in heaven." This means we can have perfect confidence in God who created and rules over all things. It would be possible, I suppose, to believe that when we speak of God in heaven, we speak of a God who is far removed from us. This is the God of the deists, those who in the time of the Enlightenment envisioned God as a sort of divine architect or engineer who, having created all things, now sits removed from the creation. But that's not what we mean here. We mean that the God in whom we place our trust and confidence is everywhere present with us. There is no place in this created order that is outside God's view, and nothing outside of God's concern. Which brings us to the first petition. Hallowed be thy name. I'll be honest with you. I used to think of this not as a petition, but part of the way we address God. But the church has traditionally treated this as a petition to God, and it makes more and more sense to me. We're asking God to make his name holy to us. We, who tend to elevate our own wants and needs above all other things, need to be reminded over and over that only God is holy. It's a way of putting ourselves in proper relation to God and, by the way, in proper relation to other people. That is, only God is God. We are mortal, frail, fallible. When we trust in ourselves, we are bound to be disappointed, but it doesn't seem to stop us from exalting ourselves. But when we say, "Hallowed be thy name," we are reminded that only God is without frailty. Only God will not disappoint us. Finally, when we ask for God's name to be hallowed, we're asking God to tear down all of the various idols we human beings erect in God's place, things in which we place our trust that always disappoint us in the end. John Calvin was surely right when he observed, "We may gather that a human being's nature, so to speak, is a perpetual factory of idols." In other words, we continually try to place our trust in people, institutions, and things that simply cannot bear the weight of our full trust. To pray, "Hallowed be thy name," is to ask God to knock our idols off of the pedestals on which we place them and remind us that God alone is worthy of our full trust and devotion. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. It's a great start to a great prayer. Tomorrow, God's kingdom. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.